has spent $15 million in 1 month for ribeye steaks, $6.9 million for lobster tail, $225 million for furniture. He spent more in the month of September than most countries on earth spend in their defense.
Paul, do you believe
all for himself? Lobster tails?
Do you believe
while our troops are eating MREs?
No.
Do
you believe the Secretary of Defense is personally eating all the lobster?
Well, he can't eat
the
16.
Troops.
Oh, really? The troops are getting lobster.
Frequently.
Brothers Defect has steak and lobster. How's your steak and lobster?
It's all right. Damn near decent.
How's yours?
I'm ready for war.
We're going to war.
Oh, my God.
Troops who are going to war.
Oh, my God.
Great meal. You know that.
They're getting
know
lobster.
That.
You are so
full of it. Killed over this.
You're
going
so
to get killed
full
over
of
this. Internet, do something.
I might have to double it. I had to run it back.
And the same thing happened when we saw 9/11. That was because of the United States' involvement in the first Gulf War, and had a long-term effect.
You're blaming the U.S.
I'm not blaming the United States. I'm saying that.
Sounds like
I'm saying that what? Well, let me finish.
I'm
saying that when we take actions across the world, that there are consequences that we don't anticipate that can happen years later. And so when we wonder why people are coming after us, attacking us, because we were attacking them.
What did the first World Trade Center bombing? What was the cause of that one?
I'm sorry?
What was the cause of the first World Trade Center bombing?
I think that's irrelevant to this moment. I think the point is
I'd probably go for number one, but I mean,
that's not the point.
We're getting away from the point.
Yeah, I mean, look, just to decenter us here.
The whole point is that things could happen later on.
The basic concept of actions and consequences, and some actions having unintended consequences. I don't know that that's really debatable. I think that's a basic principle of foreign policy that we've seen play out time and time again.
And the consequences of countries all over the world.
So on that question, I mean, is it fair for people to ask, what are the unintended consequences of this particular major action that the United States has taken?
I just want to go back to 9/11 for a second. The idea that the United States had it coming.
Never said that.
Is
never
insane.
said that. Don't put words in my mouth.
You did. You literally admitted it.
Never said that. Let's have a no conversation. Let's have a no conversation.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm not going to allow you to sit here and lie about what I just said.
We did something and that caused it.
Scott, I don't even know why you.
I mean, we're going to roll the tape later, and everybody.
Because the reason I know why you're doing this, because this allows you to deflect attention from the fact that your president, Donald Trump, has no idea what he's doing in Iran. He's caused the death. He's caused the deaths of 7 U.S. service members, of 140, as I said, 170 school children,
you don't think Iran caused
140 injuries in this country of U.S. service members as well. We've got American citizens who are stranded in the Middle East.
You're talking about unintended consequences. Let's talk about the intended.
So we got to talk about something that honestly should concern every single American who actually cares about this country, and that is the fact that the Trump administration is basically declaring war on the fake news media, and frankly, it's about time, because what we are seeing right now from the mainstream liberal media, especially outlets like CNN, is not journalism, it's political activism, and these people are hell-bent on trying to undermine the United States, undermine the president of the United States, and undermine a military operation while it's actually happening. And they're doing it simply because they hate Donald Trump that much. And if you think about that for a second, we're talking about a major geopolitical conflict involving Iran, one of the most destabilizing regimes on the planet. And instead of the American media focusing on supporting the success of the United States, or at the very least reporting responsibly, they are actively pushing narratives that make the president look incompetent and make the United States look weak. And that's the situation we're dealing with right now. And this isn't normal criticism. This isn't healthy skepticism. This is something very different. And what's even more disturbing is that they're doing it during a military operation where American credibility and deterrence actually matter on the global stage. Now, to understand why this matters, you have to understand the context of what's happening with Iran right now and why the administration is taking the actions it's taking. Iran has been a destabilizing force in the Middle East for decades, and we're talking about a regime that funds terrorist groups, threatens global shipping routes, and constantly talks about attacking American interests and our allies. So when the United States conducts operations to neutralize those threats, the last thing you would expect is for the American media to start running public relations for the Iranian regime. But that is exactly what it feels like is happening, because the narrative coming from CNN and other outlets is basically that the Trump administration doesn't know what it's doing and they didn't plan for the consequences. And that somehow this entire operation is reckless and poorly thought out. And the big story they're trying to push right now revolves around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically important waterways in the world, where a massive percentage of global oil passes through every single day. And if that waterway gets disrupted, the impact hits the global economy almost immediately. So the media narrative right now is that the administration somehow didn't consider the possibility that Iran might try to close that strait. And they claim alone that claim alone should automatically immediately raise flags, some red flags, because we are talking about something military planners have been studying for decades. But that's the claim being pushed anyway, and that's why the administration has started pushing back hard against what they say is fake reporting designed to undermine the president during an active geopolitical crisis. Hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel, and check this out.
Yet some in this crew, in the press, just can't stop. Allow me to make a few suggestions. People look up at the TV and they see banners, they see headlines. I used to be in that business, and I know that everything is written intentionally. For example, a banner or a headline, Mideast war intensifies, splashing on the screen the last couple of days, alongside visuals of civilian or energy targets that Iran has hit, because that's what they do. What should the banner read instead? How about Iran increasingly desperate? Because they are. They know it, and so do you, if it can be admitted. Or more fake news from CNN. Reports that the Trump administration underestimated the Iran war's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. Patently ridiculous, of course. For decades, Iran has threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. This is always what they do, hold the strait hostage. CNN doesn't think we thought of that. It's a fundamentally unserious report. The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better. Another example of a fake headline that I saw yesterday, war widening. Here's a real headline for you for an actual patriotic press. How about Iran shrinking, going underground? You see, Iran's leaders are hiding in bunkers and moving into civilian areas. The only thing that is widening is our advantage. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Very notable press briefing from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and the chair of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane. I would say the most defensive we have seen Pete Hegseth in any of these briefings. He led off not with mentioning the 4 airmen lost over Iraq and the refueling tanker, although he did get to that ultimately. Dan Kane led with that. But the secretary led with an attack on the press. I think most notably in terms of where things stand in the conflict, the secretary was talking a great deal about the Strait of Hormuz and the fact that there is really almost no shipping passing through, and the reports that the United States, I think, may be behind in dealing with this. The secretary said that Iran is operating with desperation in the strait. He said the United States is dealing with it. The United States has been dealing with it. And most notably, the secretary says we don't need to worry about it.
But also on the Strait of Hormuz, because the Joint Chiefs Chairman was asked about it as well, and General Dan Kane said very clearly, describe Hormuz as a tactically complex environment. And he says, before I think we want to take anything through there at scale, we want to make sure we do the work pursuant to our current military objectives to do that safely and smartly, just on the heels of President Trump saying in a new interview with Fox News, telling tankers that they should show some guts and just start moving through because he says the strait is safe.
I think also responding very notably to the Secretary of Energy's interview with you yesterday, Kate, where the Secretary said we are not yet ready to escort the tankers through. Neither the Secretary nor the chair did anything to dispute that. The chair quite the opposite, noting that Iran still very much has capability in the strait there.
Yeah, and this is exactly the problem with Democrats in the mainstream liberal media right now. At this point, they are basically running PR for the Iranian regime because their hatred for Donald Trump is so strong that they would rather see Trump fail than see America succeed. And that's the reality of what we're dealing with. They would rather see Iran gain leverage than see Trump come out of this looking strong. And I know that sounds extreme, but look at the behavior. It's one thing to question a military operation, and it's one thing to have legitimate concerns about strategy or consequences, let alone this operation only be going on for 2 weeks. But that's part of healthy debate in a free country. But that is not what's happening here. What we're seeing instead is the media pushing in narratives designed specifically to undermine the president's credibility and confidence in the operation itself. And the biggest example of this is CNN pushing the claim that the administration somehow didn't plan for Iran potentially trying to close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, think about how ridiculous that sounds for a moment. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical geopolitical choke points on the planet. Roughly a fifth of the world's oil supply passes through that narrow waterway. Every major military strategist on the planet understands that if Iran ever feels cornered, threatening that strait is one of the few leverage points they have. So the idea that the United States militarily and the administration wouldn't plan for that possibility is beyond absurd. But CNN ran the story anyway, based on anonymous sources claiming the administration was unprepared. And that's why you saw Pete Hegseth go directly at CNN and call them out for this reporting. He basically said what a lot of Americans are thinking, which is that the claim is completely preposterous. You're telling people that the most powerful military in the world didn't consider one of the most obvious strategic scenarios in the Middle East? Come on. That's not serious reporting. That's narrative building. And CNN didn't like being called out on it. But frankly, they deserved it because this pattern of anonymous leaks being treated like verified facts has been going on for years now. The goal is always the same. Get the negative story out first, shape the narrative, and then let political damage spread across the news cycle, right? And when you actually look at what officials who were present for the classified briefings are saying, the whole narrative collapses because as you guys see on the screen right here, we have Senator Tom Cotton. And it reads, as chairman of Intelligence Committee, let me make clear, whoever leaked this lied. CNN should do some fact checking. The U.S. has planned for Iran to try to close the strait for decades, right? So you got Senator Tom Cotton, who chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee, made it very clear that this reporting was false and that the United States has planned for Iran attempting to close the Strait of Hormuz for decades. And this is not some last minute contingency that just came up last week. This has been part of American military planning for years because everyone understands how strategically important that waterway is. Caroline Lovett, also came out. She's phenomenal. The secretary for, the Trump administration. She came out and directly dismantled the CNN story, saying it was based on 3 anonymous sources, while multiple officials who were actually in the classified briefing were disputing it. She explained that planning for Iran attempting to close the Strait of Hormuz has been part of Pentagon strategy for decades and was factored into planning for the current operation long before it even began. In fact, a major goal of the operation itself is to weaken Iran's ability to carry out these type of threats by targeting their naval capabilities, missile systems, and drone infrastructure. So now that you guys will see as we read, this story is 100% fake news. CNN decided to run this garbage based on 3 anonymous sources familiar with discussions. This is despite the fact that myself, the Secretary of War, the Secretary of State, and multiple lawmakers, in parentheses, who were actually present for the recent classified briefing have directly disputed this false reporting. The truth. The Pentagon has been planning for Iran's desperate and reckless closure of the Strait of Hormuz for decades, and it has been part of the Trump administration's planning well before Operation Epic Fury was ever launched. The idea that Chairman Kaine and Secretary Hegseth weren't prepared for this possibility is preposterous. The president was fully briefed on it, and the goal of the operation itself to annihilate the terrorist Iranian regime's Navy missiles, drone production infrastructure, and other threat capabilities is quite literally intended to deprive them of their ability to close the strait. President Trump will not allow rogue Iranian terrorists to stop the freedom of navigation and the free flow of energy. Wiping out these terrorists who indiscriminately target civilians and attempt to hold the global economy hostage as part of the ongoing noble U.S. mission. The fake news is working overtime to discredit President Trump, his administration, and our U.S. military, all of whom are working 24/7 to eliminate the threat of the Iranian regime. It's a complete disgrace to witness this from the media, and we will keep fighting back against it. So if you look at that, right, and if you destroy the assets, right, that allow them to attack ships or disrupt shipping lanes, you dramatically reduce their ability to threaten the strait in the first place when it comes to Iran. And that's basic military logic. And yet CNN tried to frame the situation as if the administration was caught off guard. But this isn't the only example of the media pushing questionable narratives, because ABC News recently ran a story suggesting Iran might retaliate against U.S. strikes by launching drone attacks against California. And that headline here, I'll give it to you in a minute. The headline with ABC, as you guys see, alone immediately causes panic because people start thinking there's an imminent attack on American soil, right? But what ABC initially left out was a critical piece of information. The intelligence behind that alert was unverified. So when you look at this, that caused fear. Breaking: the FBI has warned police departments in California that Iran wants to retaliate for American attacks by launching a fist of drones against the West Coast, according to alert reviewed by ABC News, right? This is what creates panic. And these are the questionable narratives. We all know how CNN and ABC are all part of the mainstream liberal media, and their mainstream liberal media outlets, NBC, MSNBC, all of them. So when you look at that, it was essentially a precautionary notice sent to law enforcement based on a tip that haven't been verified. After getting backlash, ABC quietly updated the story to acknowledge the information was unverified. Something that absolutely should have been included from the beginning. When you leave out a detail like that, the story changes dramatically. And instead of precautionary alert, it suddenly sounds like a credible threat. And that's how public panic starts. And this is why a lot of Americans are starting to realize that the biggest threat to the country right now isn't just foreign adversaries. It's the political and media environment here at home. And thank goodness for Caroline Lovett, the Secretary of the Trump administration, and Senator Tim Cotton. And also this guy over here from, I believe he is from California, the senator here. He said, I received a classified briefing from the administration. It is categorically false that they did not plan for the Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz. Lawmakers and national security officials have known for years that this was Iran's plan once their backs was against the wall. So when you look at all of that, and you look at the mainstream liberal media outlets basically rushing stories out without verifying key facts, especially during the geopolitical conflict, they aren't just reporting news, they're shaping public perception in ways that can actually harm the country, the United States of America. Because ABC ran a headline suggesting Iran could strike California. People panicked, and then only later did they quietly add the detail that the intelligence was unverified. And then Caroline Lovett had called them out in regards to ABC directly and saying the story should be retracted, as you guys see right here in the post, because it was based on a single email about an unverified tip. And she's absolutely right to call that out, because this pattern keeps happening. When it's negative about Trump, the story gets rushed out immediately and verification comes later, if it comes at all. But when it's negative about Democrats or their policies, suddenly the media becomes extremely cautious and careful about verifying every detail. That double standard is exactly why so many Americans no longer trust these outlets. People see the pattern, they understand what's happening, and the reality is that there are a lot of people in this country right now who simply do not want to see Trump succeed under any circumstances. They would rather see the administration fail, even during a geopolitical conflict, and then admit that the strategy might actually work. And that mindset is dangerous, and it shows how deeply politics have infected the media landscape. But now I want to show you guys of Caroline Levitt disputing it, and also the whole thing when it comes to California. The reporting from ABC News about California and the false reporting that they did that I broke down to you guys. Check it out.
Iran, there are growing concerns about the possibility of Iranian sleeper cells launching attacks here at home. Our Peter Doocy asked President Trump about that last night.
Have you been briefed about how many Iran sleeper cells there could be inside the U.S. right now?
I have been, and a lot of people came in through Biden with this stupid open border. But we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them, I think. They came in through the open border policies of Sleepy Joe Biden, one of the worst president in the history of our country. And we've got our eyes on all of them.
Now, this comes as the White House pushes back on an ABC report that said that the FBI warned California of an alleged Iranian plan to attack the state with drones. Press Secretary Caroline Levitt last hour writing, quote, "This post and story should be immediately retracted by ABC News for providing false information to intentionally alarm the American people." She goes on to say, "To be clear, no such threat from Iran to our homeland exists, and it never did." And I do want to point out, California, pretty quickly after, Governor Gavin Newsom came out with a tweet. He said this, Harris: "I am in constant coordination with security and intelligence officials." And he goes on to say, including those tied to the conflict in the Middle East, "While we are not aware of any imminent threat at this time, we remain prepared."
Look, that's actually the right thing to say, because we have to remain prepared. I think we're in kind of the zone of everybody wanting to report it first, get it out, do whatever. I can't speak to where they got that particular information or why they thought they needed to say it in that way. But I can say this, there is just an overall thought. We are not being protected the way we should be right now because the Democrats are not funding the TSA and much of DHS. The Border Patrol and ICE funded from the big, beautiful law. The rest of it, they are holding us all hostage in airports and other places where we're in large crowds, just laid bare because people are not on the job to do their jobs. They're not getting paid. They're getting gig work. Third, shutdown from Chuck Schumer, and this one hurts. So I want to focus on where we are vulnerable, and California has some things. It's got reachability, it's got Vandenberg Air Force Base, we already know. Remember the Chinese...
Well, first of all, California is already a shithole because Gavin Newsom is basically abandoning his government duties because he's so caught up in running for the 2028 presidential run, which is horrible because if you really look at the results, all you got to do is look at how he governed, because if you think he's going to be president, please, God, he don't. The reality is, just look at the state of California alone. That would tell you the result of how he will run a country.
Spy balloon that went across, what were they spying on? That particular location, our Air Force, that. So we know our enemies would love to hit that particular part of that state, if not all of it. And I think that we all just have to wake up to this fact. I am a little reticent because I'm seeing a lot of it in social media now. There's a lot of flex going on. There's a lot of the... Got to get it out there. And you know what we have to get out there? We need to get DHS funded. Let's get that out there.
Yeah, Kennedy.
And that was the mic drop right there. You need to get DHS funded because obviously national security is important. You don't have a country if you don't have national security. It's just that simple, right? But like I said, they would rather see the administration fail, even during a geopolitical conflict, than admit that the strategy might actually work. And that mindset is dangerous, and it shows how deeply politics has infected the media landscape. But at the end of the day, Americans deserve accurate reporting, especially when it comes to issues involving national security and military operations. And I want to fact check something because we are not in a war. And I'm tired of people saying that. It's an operation. It's called Epic Fury. It's a military operation to take down a regime. If we were in a war, there would be boots on the ground, and also we would need approval from Congress because Congress controls the purse strings, which in simple terms is they will actually have to approve the funding to be able to give the military more funding to go to war and having boots on the ground using all the resources that involve the military. All we're doing is dropping bombs, literally. So we just have airplanes, just flying drones and everything. We're just dropping bombs. There's no boots on the ground, thank God. So the simple fact is to say we're in a war, that is truly not true at all. So I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people is conflating the two or confusing it, or they just misinformed or just being disingenuous. But however, instead, what we're seeing far too often is narrative driven coverage designed to create panic, undermine leadership, and shape public opinion against the administration. And that's something people should pay very close attention to. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this perspective. And subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Turn on your post notifications so you don't miss the next video. On that note, family, I'll catch you in the next one. I'm out. Peace.